Your browser knows more about you than your best mate does, and it's telling strangers. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on what actually is being collected every time you jump online, why the two excuses you're about to reach for don't hold up, and what you can do about it without turning your life upside down. Keep watching. Welcome to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost with me, Charly Leetham. If you're a small business owner looking to simplify technology and get real, actionable advice from someone with 35 years of IT experience, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll dive into tools and systems like email, CRM, marketing and tracking, and I'll break them down into bite-sized tips you can use straight away. Your time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. It's time to work smarter, not harder. Rise and Shine, it's your business tech boost with me, Charly Leetham, episode number 702. We're going to be talking about the mindset of privacy, browsing the internet, and making some informed decisions as a result of what we're going to share today. So let's get straight into it. We all open our browsers a dozen times a day without really thinking about it. It's that one tool we all need to access the internet for searches, banking, social media, and research, just to name a few. I know that a lot of you are aware that browsers or websites track a heap of stuff about ourselves. Searches, every click we make on a page, every page we land on, how long we stayed there, where we went to next, that can all be recorded somewhere. Now, I say can, it may not necessarily be so, but I'm going to say can, and most probably is. I know that a lot of you have also noticed that once you've searched for something somewhere, like maybe it's a pair of shoes, pretty much every site you go to that has advertising on it shows you that exact same thing you search for, the same pair of shoes you search for. Annoying as that is, you might be surprised to realize that the tracking can go much, much further than that. It goes beyond cookies. There's this process called device fingerprinting. Now, that sounds a bit CSI, I know. I'm told the concept isn't complex, and maybe it isn't, but it's worth explaining that a bit before I continue with the rest of this episode because it matters. When you open a website, your browser sends over bits of information so the page can work. Things like your screen size, browser version, time zone, and language. It can also send over things about what your system supports, like graphics capability, how your device processes audio, what fonts are available to use. Is it a touch screen device? How much memory do you have? How many CPU cores are available? The site can also run some simple tests like drawing an invisible image or checking features and reading the results. That is an awful lot of information for your browser to provide, don't you think? Sure, some of it makes sense, like the screen size and perhaps time zone and language, but the rest? This is where device fingerprinting really pays off or really comes to the fore. That information can be used to profile your device, not you necessarily. And when you go to another site, that profile can be checked by the third parties collecting the information, ad networks, security companies, etc., and a reasonable approximation made that this is the same person who visited site A, they're now visiting this site here. Whilst they can't identify you by name, they can certainly try to identify you by device. Now, if you're like me, you're probably shaking your head and saying something like, if two Samsung Galaxies S26 Ultras using Chrome visit the same site, they can't possibly tell them apart. And the answer is there's a strong probability they can because each device will behave a little differently. One might have Chrome 1.22 on it. The other might have Chrome 1.20. It could be down to the different patch release numbers as well. There could be different fonts or apps installed on the device. Yes, sometimes it can tell what apps are installed on the device. Slightly different hardware or driver behavior, and that image test that I mentioned before, that comes back just a little differently. Each of those differences is so small, They're tiny, tiny little differences. But when you stack dozens, let me try that one again. When you stack dozens of them together, the full set stops matching other people. It becomes rather unique, like a fingerprint. The site, or rather, the third parties collecting the information, uses that full set as a pattern. It's not perfect and it's not guaranteed to be unique, but in practice, it's usually different enough that when the same full set shows up again, it's treated as the same browser. I know, this is a mindset episode, and I've spent a reasonable amount of time talking about some techie concepts. Here's why. Your browsing data is a product that can be bundled up and sold on to advertisers, to data brokers, which are companies you've probably never heard of, whose entire business is buying and selling information about people like you and I, and to a whole pile of third parties who want to know what you're into, what you're worried about, what you're about to buy, without your permission and without knowing who they are. There is a massive industry built on this. It's worth billions of dollars, and the raw material that runs it is what you do in your browser every day. In that transaction, you're not the customer, you're the product. Add to that with all the verification laws that are being implemented or touted. Just imagine what can be captured about you from your browsing habits. Now, this is usually where I hear one of two things, and I want to tackle them both because they're probably the two most dangerous mindsets we can have about this stuff. The first is, I've got nothing to hide, so why should I care? That's not exactly the right question because this was never about hiding something dodgy. It's about someone else making money off information about you without you seeing a cent of it and without you really understanding what you agreed to in the first place. It's about governments creating profiles on you for what is legal today but might not be legal tomorrow, and those laws being made retroactive. The second one is, well, they're getting it anyway, so what's the point? Now, I call that the resignation trap. It's the same logic as saying people break into houses anyway, so why bother locking the front door? You lock the door because it makes it harder and you force the opportunist to move on and try an easier house. That's the same deal here. You don't have to be invisible. You can simply not be an easy target. Now, if you're a business owner, this isn't just personal. Think about what you're actually doing in your browser during a working day. You might be checking out suppliers. You might be researching your competitors. You might be researching a new product you're thinking about bringing in. You could be investigating funding sources or simply checking out banks and their fee structures. What is it that you're doing? You're looking up answers to problems in your business that you haven't told anyone about yet, things that you might not be ready to ask out loud. All of that paints a pretty detailed picture of where your business is, where it's going, and where it might get wobbly. That picture is walking out the door every day into the hands of companies you've probably never heard of and potentially ending up somewhere you really don't want it. When you look at it that way, this stops being about paranoia and starts being about not handing over your business intelligence to strangers for free. Now, I'm really going to get into the mindset mode of this episode. What can you do about it? There's a few things you can do about it, and it starts with intentionally choosing your browser. Don't try and say that fast. Don't just settle for Microsoft Edge or Google's Chrome. These are two of the least friendly, privacy friendly options available. Both Microsoft's and Google's business models rely on data collection, and their browsers are designed to feed as much of that information back to the company as it possibly can. It's not a bug. That's the whole point of the product from their perspective. And if you're using their browser without thinking about it, you're playing the game on their terms. There are some great options available. My favorite is Brave, but there's also Firefox or even DuckDuckGo, and these are designed to respect your privacy. I've done a couple of episodes on Brave, so if you're interested, you can go and watch those. But the point I want to make here isn't that you need to go and change your browser right now. It's that the choice of browser is actually a choice, and most of us have never really made it. We're using whatever came installed on the device when we bought it, and the default was chosen for us by someone whose interests don't necessarily line up with ours. The next thing I want to bust is the incognito mode myth. It doesn't stop people tracking you the way most people think it does. I've done an episode on this, so I won't go into the weeds, but the short version is that incognito mode or private browsing or whatever your particular browser calls it, don't stutter, only stops your own browser from saving the history and cookies on your device once you close the window. It does absolutely nothing to hide what you're doing from the websites you visit, from your internet service provider, from your employer if you're on their network, or from any of the trackers that we were talking about earlier. So if you're using incognito mode thinking it was giving you some kind of cloak of invisibility, I'm sorry to say it really isn't. It's useful for what it was designed for, which is not leaving traces on a shared computer, but it's not a privacy tool in the way most people think of it. The next thing to talk about here is something so small and so ordinary that you probably don't even notice we're doing it anymore, and that's clicking on that accept all on the cookie banners that come up. Thanks to the GDPR, it's such a wonderful piece of legislation. It's really not. I dislike it, but anyway, we have it. Nearly every single website you visit throws a cookie banner in your face, and most of us have trained ourselves just to click on the big, obvious button to make that banner go away so we can get on with whatever we came for. The thing is, that banner exists to ask for your permission before they load a bunch of tracking cookies. And when you click accept all, you're literally giving them that permission in writing. The mindset shift here isn't about sitting there for 10 minutes reading every cookie policy. It's about pausing for 2 seconds or whatever before you click and actually looking for the reject all or necessary only option. Most sites are now legally required to offer that. It's a tiny, tiny change in our behavior, but it's the difference between being someone who hands over their information by default and someone who has actually made a choice about it. Browser hygiene is something else you need to consider because most of us have years of accumulated rubbish in our browser and we've just never looked at it. Cookies from sites you visited once in 2019 and never went back to. Saved passwords for accounts you've forgotten you even had. And the big one, browser extensions and add-ons. I know, we don't think about those, do we? Extensions can be genuinely useful, but every single extension you install has been granted permission to see what you're doing in your browser. Some of them ask for permission to read and change all the data on every website you visit, and we just click yes because we want the thing to work. If you want to look at the extensions you've got installed right now, I'd be reasonably certain you'll find at least one or two that you don't remember installing, or you installed it for a specific purpose years ago and haven't used it since. These are the ones that you can get rid of because they're sitting there with access to everything you do and providing you with nothing in return. The last thing I want to touch on in this section is the idea of separating your browsing into contexts, which sounds fancy, but really just means not doing everything in the same browser or in the same profile. Most of us use one browser and we have it open for everything. We do our business research, we do our banking, we do our social media, we do our online shopping, the lot. When you do that, you're making it really easy for all those different parts of your life to be stitched together into one big profile. I'm going to encourage you to try and separate the different parts of your life. Consider using different browsers for work and personal, or even just using different profiles on the same browser. Maybe that last one doesn't give you as much differentiation, but it's certainly going to give you something. Alrighty, guys, let me try and land all of this and tie it up with a nice little bow. The core mindset shift is this: move from "I've got nothing to hide" to understanding that your data has value and you get to decide who benefits from it. Once you see it in that way, every other decision gets easier because you're no longer asking whether something is worth protecting. You're now asking who's making money off of you or me, and whatever you're okay with. Alrighty, guys, let me try and land all this and tie it up with a nice little bow. The core mindset shift is this: move from "I've got nothing to hide" to understanding that your data has value and you get to decide who benefits from it. Once you see it that way, every other decision gets easier because you're no longer asking whether something is worth protecting. You're asking who's making money off you and whether you're okay with that. It's okay if you are okay with that. You're just making an informed decision now. The quickest and the easiest practical thing you can do is to have an honest look at what browser you're using right now and ask yourself whether you're happy with the amount of information it gives to unknown third parties. If the answer is no, consider moving to one of the privacy-friendly browsers. I did that years ago and I really haven't regretted it. The second thing is to audit your browser extensions. Have a look at what's there. Uninstall anything you don't actively use or can't remember installing in the first place. Every extension you get rid of is one less thing watching what you do online, and it takes about 30 seconds per extension to remove them. That's if you can remember what it is and you don't have to go and do some research, but it's quick to do. It's an easy thing to do. The third thing is to pick one small habit to change straight away. And I mean one, not 10. It might be that you start rejecting cookies instead of accepting them. It might be that you switch your default search engine, not even your browser, just your search engine. Switch it to Brave Search or switch it to DuckDuckGo. Maybe you'll set up a separate profile on your browser for business. Pick one, because one change that actually sticks is worth more than 10 changes you try for a day and abandon. The last thing I want to leave you with is this: none of what we've talked about today is about being paranoid or throwing your devices out the window or hiding in a bunker. It's about being aware of what's happening, making conscious choices about instead of default ones, and taking back a little bit of control over what your browser is sharing about you and your business. You don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to stop being on autopilot. What do you guys think? Have I raised more questions than I've answered here? I kind of hope so. It is how we learn and grow, but I also want to know, have you done this? How did it go? What worked? What didn't? I really, really would love to know your answers to those questions. So please leave comments wherever you're watching or listening to this video. If it was useful, I would love a like, and maybe you could share it with a friend as well. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button now and ring the bell so you can find out when I drop more content. Of course, if you need help with any of this, I'm here to help. If you haven't already booked a free 30-minute breakthrough session, you can do that by visiting my website, askcharlyleetham.com, and clicking the button in the top right-hand corner. If you've already had your free session for yourself or your business, reach out and book more time with me. I am available to hire. I'd love to help you. That's it for today, guys. I am going to wish you a safe and private week, or at least a couple of days. I'm going to see you on Wednesday, where we're going to do a walkthrough Wednesday. Bye. Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost. I hope today's episode gave you some actionable insights that will make your business tech work smarter for you. If you found value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other small business owners who could use a daily boost. For more tips, tools, and resources, visit www.askcharlyleetham.com. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and let's make tech simple together.